people, a tiny, tiny minority, wreaking havoc. We can't convince those people to stop, so the law must speak. The Center for the Humane Economy works to influence corporations. The biggest businesses in food retail, like Walmart or Costco, the biggest names in fashion, like Armani, the biggest names in pharmaceuticals, like AstraZeneca and Pfizer. We try to get them to include animal welfare
Look at that,
in their
Yoshi.
business operations. That means their R&D programs, their purchasing practices, and aspects of their businesses. So those, to me, are the two biggest levers for animal welfare. The problem with animals is cruelty, but it's systemic cruelty. It's
Technically,
big,
this
big
one should be working
operations like
anyway.
factory farms, like animal testing, horse slaughter. You can't rescue your way out of these problems. You've got to really change the fundamentals of how we're treating these animals. And that's why Animal Wellness Action and the Center for the Humane Economy have this two-pronged approach of business and government.
You and I talked about this before. It's, you have to walk a fine line. No one wants to be lectured
And
about what they should or can't eat.
Yeah,
So
should be like, oh, dude, you should have just seen the thing.
Practices that where the foods
Oh,
that they
yeah, you're right.
comes from, and they can make informed choices. They don't have to stop eating this or that, but at least they can make choices that make the lives of millions of animals better just by their buying power, right?
No, of course, George, and none of us want to be a scold. None of us want to tell people what to do, but it's important for all of us who care about animals. And I rarely find someone who doesn't care about animals. You have to be a hard-hearted person, not to think about these creatures who are innocent, who feel pain like we do, who have emotions like we do, in the sense of they have happiness and joy, they have sadness, they have loneliness. And, in our society, we have really, really put animals into certain boxes. We think of them as just part of these big industries, and we don't give much of a thought to how our actions affect them down the line. When we're eating, when we're buying products in the marketplace, when we're wearing coats. Used to be nothing to wear a fur coat. Now, so many people recognize, my God, you're killing 40 mink. You're stitching their pelts together after trapping them in the wild or keeping them on a fur factory, and you've got an option that is just as warm, just as stylish. Why do we need to do that? And I think it's the goodness of humanity. All of us trying to do better when it comes to our treatment of animals. That's a really cool responsibility, and it can be overwhelming. But you and I are going to have having a wide-ranging discussion. Right? They're real problems. We're not doing this. You and I having this discussion just because it's some sort of academic exercise, because it's real. These animals are at risk, and we can do something about it because we're smart enough as a species. We're creative enough. We're innovative enough to figure out options for us that don't produce a trail of animal victims in our wake.
Let's jump right into horses. How did this investigation begin? Was there a suspicion that it was happening, and you needed to gather enough evidence to prove it?
This issue of horse slaughter has been around our country for a long time. George, we used to have horse slaughter plants, and we had them all over the country. I'm from Connecticut originally. We had a horse slaughter plant in Connecticut when I was a kid. Your home state of Nevada. There were horses that were rounded up from the wild
nobody
just
else
awful.
cares.
And I knew it was a bloody, barbaric business, and we fence with our partner organization, Animals, Angels, people around the country, as you noted in your setup, and also to Canada and Mexico to look at this. And the report is just startling in so many ways.
Tell me, the slaughter, we'll get to that, the slaughter part of it, but the treatment of these horses, what kind of horses end up in this process, and what happens to them along the way? Because that really gets to me in reading how they are treated in their final days.
I think that's the takeaway from the report is the treatment before the slaughter, that once these horses get into the hands of what's called a kill buyer, the treatment of the animals just hits the floor. They basically just have the survival mentality, the kill buyer for the horses. They don't provide any care for them. They treat them like the worst kind of baggage you can imagine. And they're coming out of the many places where horses live in our society. They could be coming off of the racetrack. They could be coming out of the police precinct for the mounted horses. They could be coming off of a ranch or some other work setting. They could be coming out of the show ring. They could be coming from an owner who just says, "Listen, I don't have the time, to give to the horse, and I want to go to an auction, hope the horse lands with someone who is going to care for them better." And these kill buyers, these predatory kill buyers, show up at these auctions. They often misrepresent themselves. They acquire these horses often for low dollars. Then they put them on a truck and they ship them to Canada or Mexico. Other times they menace horse advocates. They're known to many horse rescues and horse advocates, and they say, "Listen, if you don't give us enough money, we're going to kill this horse. We're going to send this horse to Mexico." And that puts the animal advocates in a terrible position of trying to pony up money to save these horses. It's a ghastly little industry. The good news, George, is that the numbers are going down, and we can really finish off this industry.
Yeah, I was amazed by where the numbers were a few years ago and where they are now. But it's still, I think, in this study, it can still be 20,000 horses a year here, right?
It's a lot of animals. If you think of 30 horses jammed onto one of these trucks, and you think 20,000, of these horses a year, that's 666 shipments of horses filling a truck every year. That's 2 a day going over our borders. And just think of these horses. They're flight and fright animals. They have beautiful eyes. They have these long legs, these powerful bodies. When there's a threat, they run. And that is their ability to run at 45 miles an hour. They can't run from these people. They are then jammed into these trucks. They have the stallions and the mares bunched together. They are frightened. They know that something is wrong. And they go on a passage of hundreds of miles or 1,000 miles where they are just treated like, an animal just waiting to die. They just don't give any consideration to their well-being. And it used to be, George, that in 1990, just to take, a 30-year span of this, we were killing 350,000 American horses. They were being slaughtered in plants throughout the United States, slaughter plants, or they were being shipped to Canada and Mexico. It dropped because of concerns about cruelty, concerns about food safety. These horses are coming off of ranches and racetracks where they have substances administered to them, like butazolidine, which is an anti-inflammatory, that's forbidden for consumption by humans. There's no cats, no pigs, no animals traditionally used for food or administered with that substance, or another 125 substances that have been documented in horses that are headed for the food chain. Now, not the food chain in the United States, fortunately, but the food chain in Japan or China or Russia. And a lot of people are now concerned about this food safety issue. They're concerned about the animal welfare. And let's also note that no one's raising these horses for food. They're opportunistically gathered up by these kill buyers, and they're misrepresenting who they are. very few people who go to an auction want their horses going to slaughter. And, for us to see the misrepresentations that occur for a lot of these, in a lot of these settings, is just another aspect of this mass betrayal by humans of horses who've played such a role in our human experience.
We're talking with Wayne Pacelli of Animal Wellness Action. We'll continue our conversation about horses, in particular about wild horses, how many of them end up in this pipeline, and then expand the conversation to other species. Bob Dylan, Shelter from the Storm.
Was in another lifetime, what toys brother? When blackness was a virtue, the road was full of mud. I came in from the wilderness, a creature void of fun. Come in, she said, I'll give you shelter from the storm. And if I pass this way again, you can rest assured. I'll always do my best for her, on that I'll give my word. In a world that feel like death and never I fight and jet be warm. Come in, she said, I'll give ya shelter from the storm. Not a word was spoke between us. KFI, news of the hour. On the hand, and when it breaks.
I'm Mark Ronner in the KFI 24-hour newsroom. Southern California is cleaning up from a historic winter storm. Thousands of homes and businesses were without power yesterday. Heavy rain and strong winds impacted the region, and heavy snow was reported at higher elevations. The rain also led to flooding on streets in Fernando Valley, and high water rescues were reported at Hanson Dam and in Pasadena. Officials from Michigan and Texas say they weren't told ahead of time that contaminated soil and water from the train derailment in Ohio was being sent to their states for disposal. More than 1 million removed from the accident site. A judge in Texas says they were told the waste was coming to her state a week after it arrived. Southland weather from KFI. After a brief dry spell today, the rain's back tonight with lows in the mid-40s, mid-30s in the Inland Empire, 30s and a chance of snow in the Antelope Valley. Rain continues tomorrow with highs in the mid-50s, 40s, and a bit of snow in the AV, and that's unlikely to let up until Wednesday night. We lead local from the KFI 24-hour newsroom. I'm Mark Ron.
In Cerritos, this is on the 91 westbound, right before the 605 Little Fender Bender there, taking up the left lane. CHP is on the scene. You're driving approach downtown LA. We have good news. Earlier crash on the 110 northbound at the 10 has been cleared from lanes. Your drive is recovering from exposition. Highland Park, this is on the 110 southbound at Avenue 43. We have a crash there, out of lanes and on the right shoulder. KFI in the sky helps get you there faster. I'm Brian Van.
At LA Fitness, there's no end to what you can try with your 3-day free pass. Sign up today at startlafitness.com. From cycling to swimming, running to rowing, battle ropes to box jump. When you join LA Fitness, it opens the door to premium amenities with Olympic lifting platforms, basketball courts, pools, and more. Start a new day revolution. So get your pass today. Come into one of our hundreds of locations. Online with our latest offers. Grab your free 3-day pass at startlafitness.com. That's startlafitness.com. And any sales allocations for communities may be available for additional fees. 3-day passes available on members only. Other restrictions apply.
This year is the year to learn a new language with Rosetta Stone. No matter what's inspiring you to learn a language, travel, work, family, or just for fun, the Rosetta Stone app makes it easy to get started and stay motivated to reach your goals. Right now, get a lifetime unlimited subscription with forever access to all 25 of Rosetta Stone's languages for 40% off. Visit rosettastone.com today and save 40%. Rosetta Stone, how language is learned.
I never chose to become a gambling addict, but what I did choose was to get help from a professional counselor.
For no-cost gambling addiction counseling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text support to 53342. Brought to you by the California Department of Public Health.
On the podcast Really Know Really, join best friends Jason Alexander and Peter Tilden, along with experts, newsmakers, and celebrities, in a search for answers to life's most baffling, intriguing, and annoying questions. You know, those things that make you go, really? Now, really?
I think there was a 17-year-old in Rhode Island who ran a candidate that was a deepfake. Really? Wait, that's news to me. That's really no really right there. Really no really.
Listen to Really Know Really on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcast. KFI, AM 640, more stimulating talk. I mean, the hypocrisy is stunning. It's breathtaking on this. And even the most rabid anti-abortion group of people
Oh, jeez.
You're listening to Coast AM with George Knapp. This Rolling Stones song is not literally about wild horses. It's used as a metaphor. It's just a beautiful tune, and I use it every chance I get. No excuses needed. Wild horses, American Mustangs, are protected by law. The law of the land was enacted unanimously by Congress more than half a century ago, and the Mustangs are not supposed to be killed for meat or used for dog food or mistreated. The law was meant to allow them to live out their lives on the public range. But, a lot of landowners hate the Mustangs, want them gone. The BLM, Bureau of Land Management, more than happy to go along with that and round up as many as they can. The killer buyers that Wayne Pacelli mentioned find ways to get their claws on the Mustangs, send them into this bloody pipeline that leads to slaughterhouses, contrary to the law. As this new report documents, the conditions of those meat plants, dilapidated, dirty, nothing close to any humane standards for animals or protections for people. It is a dying industry, but one that is still causing so much suffering, and it needs to stop. We'll continue our conversation with Wayne Pacelli about horses, and then expand it into an even larger arena, a larger issue, an area where you can help in a very direct way, just by making a call or sending an email. Back in a moment.
Tax season can be taxing on your identity because all your personal information is all in one place, getting emailed, shared, and possibly exposed to identity thieves. Tax forms can be like one-stop shops for ID thieves, which means it can be dangerously easy to steal your identity. Protection against identity theft is easier with LifeLock by Norton. LifeLock by Norton helps monitor your info and alert you to potential identity threats. A dedicated U.S.-based restoration specialist will work to fix it for tax season and beyond. No one can prevent all identity theft or monitor all transactions at all businesses, but you can make sure your identity theft protection starts here. Join LifeLock today. Save up to 25% off your first year. Call 1-800-LifeLock or go to lifelock.com and use promo code George. That's lifelock.com. Use promo code George to save 25% off. lifelock.com.
forever be without it.
Our little dog developed this lymph problem. The chemotherapy lasted for 6 months. He started developing more lymph nodes that were swelled up. So I thought I'd just try carnivore. The lymph nodes started to go down, swelling did. Then I took him into the vet to have him checked out, and there was no signs at all inside. My cat had issues that developed into height, so my veterinarian said, you know what, just go ahead and remove the eye. I heard the carnivore advertising, so I said, you know what, I'm going to order this product. They did all the tests. I kid you not, this product saved his eye.
Call 866-836-8735. That's 866-836-8735. Or visit carnivore.com. That's carnivora.com.
Wayne Pacelli, it seems like a lot of people have to look the other way for this to happen, to keep happening. Horses crammed into these corrals right there near the border, trucks packed with horses crossing into Canada and Mexico. I mean, how many clues does one need to see this? Your investigators saw it with their own eyes, right?
In 10 states and 2 countries. One takeaway, George, is there are just 2 plants now operating in Canada. There's one in Alberta, and it's called Vouvray Ltd. And then there's one in Quebec, and it's beyond Richelieu. And the Alberta facility is incredible. It's a vast, holding area outside of the slaughterhouse. No shelter, no protection whatever for these horses. Our team documented minus 30-degree temperatures. I mean, these horses are, they can withstand something, but not minus 30 with no shelter and no place to go. If you're a wild horse out on the range, you can seek shelter. But when you're packed in a corral and you've got nothing to protect you from minus 30-degree wind and chill and just bitter cold, that is also an animal welfare issue. Freezing an animal to death is an animal welfare issue. And, we just found so many problems that nothing could be worse for the horse than ending up in the hands of the kill buyer and then being funneled through the slaughter pipeline.
What kind of reaction to the report so far, say on Capitol Hill or regulatory agencies? Is anyone paying attention, or is it going to take the public to get involved to really raise some help?
Well, they're paying attention, but the only way that things will change is if we, as an American people, get riled up about this. The Congress already has, weighed in on this topic and said no slaughter in the United States. Well, if it's wrong to slaughter American horses in Illinois or Texas or New Mexico, then it's wrong to slaughter American horses in Alberta or Quebec or Chihuahua. There's just no rationale for it. We don't eat these horses. This is not even something you can call an industry. This is a loose network of predatory individuals who are opportunistically taking up horses for their own little small network and its profits. There are no industry standards. They have no standards of care. Even the major livestock organization for cattlemen, pork producers that we've got a lot of problems with in terms of how they care for their animals, at least they have some animal care standards that they purport to observe. There are no standards because this isn't even an industry. This is the kill buyer grabbing an animal, putting the animal at some horrible holding facility, then having a kill trucker take the animal to a holding facility in Shelby, Montana, near the border with Canada, or toward the border of Mexico, in Texas. And then, eventually, after more mistreatment, more neglect, shipping them down to be butchered. These horses have eyes as wide as saucers, once they see other horses being killed right in front of them. I mean, just think of, these are conscious beings. They're prey animals at some level. They're alert. They see an animal killed in front of them. I mean, my God, it's a horror movie. If human beings had to endure that sort of thing, we would understand and immediately empathize with the terror that someone would feel with the inevitability